Welcome back to this second hour of Hereticus, and it has been determined that we'll do a bit of a flashback, because at the end of last session, the acolytes were gathered in the Medici facility, and they were having a chit chat where Achelon spoke about his past, and I think the idea is that we'll hear some of the other players or characters, so we can get some insight into their pasts. So a bit of a flashback, and then once that's done, we'll jump right back to the present. And I think so. The problem is that Medea can't be there because she's with the drill abbot. So
unless he has, he could have other duties for an hour or something where she could be allowed out, for example.
I think that's a thing, because
when everybody can be there.
Yep, absolutely. So that's absolutely a thing. So yeah. Cool. So you're all gathered in this room in the Medici facility. So
and Achelon has finally finished his halting ramblings about himself.
Yes. Ramblings I quite enjoy, I might add. But
yeah.
So who's next?
I think Francesca looks towards the other two and sort of, expectantly seeing who of Medea and Tim picks up the baton and runs with it.
I think Tim looks back and forth as well. And then after a good bit of awkward silence, he sighs. Well, if we're going to have a powwow, I can share next.
Sure, let's hear it.
Well, I was born on an orbital archaeotech research unit known as BN1553. It orbits the death world of Mortressa, and the tech priests sometimes go down there to, I don't actually know, find interesting stuff, I guess. My parents were algae cultivators, so you can imagine I have quite a distaste for that kind of food. I had a bit of a falling in with a bad crowd in my younger days, which apparently got me noted because I was quite good at planning getaways and, as you could imagine, hitting stuff, though usually with rubble or whatever. So I got noticed by the research unit's authoritative personnel, and they set out to correct my path. I was enrolled into a, well, I suppose you could call it a military program when I was 12. And there I trained.
Right.
We were a small unit known as the Sedition Silencers. You can imagine what we did.
Silenced sedition?
Exactly.
However did I guess?
I have no idea. Perhaps you're smarter than you look, he says and smirks friendly, in a friendly manner. We had, of course, we had code names, but we were a small unit of myself, our unit leader Shrike, Wolf, Hound, and Crow. We planned and executed assassinations of key targets around the facility because for some reason they kept popping up. So we silenced them. We did quite well early on, but unfortunately that didn't last. two of our, well, most of the unit fell apart eventually. Hound was killed. And later it was discovered that Wolf and Crow were having an affair as they tried to escape the unit. They were, of course, executed for desertion. At that point, it was only really me and Shrike. So rather than continuing the unit, we were placed as assassination specialists on the more common law enforcement force. And there we served until some strange men approached me and told me to come along. Shrike wasn't too pleased. I think she wanted to be selected. But she wasn't.
Nope, clearly not.
I think perhaps they blamed her leadership on the unit falling apart.
See? Well, I should hope that she did not actually blame you. I mean, you were following orders.
We only really had a brief interaction when I left. So, how she feels, I don't know.
I guess not.
I do imagine that she won't be happy to see me if that ever happens.
Well, it might, but at that point, you will be in a pretty unassailable position. Let's face it. You are an inquisitorial acolyte, and she is, I don't know, a sedition silencer. There's a certain difference.
That's true, though carrying out an assassination tends to eliminate many of the differences between people.
Oh, I know, but the point is that if she's not to put too fine a point on it, if she is offended in any way by your presence, and upset at you, you will in fact be at liberty to tell her to be quiet.
Oh, she's a cold bitch. So I don't imagine she would tell me to my face.
All right.
You kind of learn to be unemotional when working with the tech priests.
There is a look on Francesca's face as if, you know, that there's that, oh, that explains everything.
I think Tim smirks at that and says, oh, no, I'm just a cold bastard, naturally.
All right. Sounds like... It doesn't sound like you've had... How to put this?
A particularly interesting life?
I wouldn't say that. I'd say that's probably been quite interesting and quite dangerous, but perhaps not a very pleasant one.
Well, I prefer to being an algae farmer.
I actually think I understand. Right?
Well, unless there are any other questions, I should like to pass the ball along.
Sure. Medea, what about you?
Medea just looks at them. She has a lot of voices swirling around in her head. Some of them not all that pleased. What about
Medea?
me?
We're...
You didn't hear the first part? Damn it.
I heard it.
Alright.
She looks dazed because of
Yeah, she looks dazed, exactly. Yeah. So what about your background? A bit more of, you know, us getting to know a bit more about each other, I suppose.
I'm not entirely sure you want to know it.
I'm pretty sure we do. I mean, we are literally in the line of fire with one another, I think it makes a certain amount of sense that we actually know each other. It gives a pretty good indication. If nothing else, it gives you a pretty good idea of,
While she's talking, Medea starts twitching a little, and then slaps herself firmly. Sighs, and crosses her arms. Shut up. And then she just grabs her head.
Are you all right?
Are you?
Hey, don't dodge the question. You look like you're having problems.
Fine. It'll be fine. It says it'll be fine.
What is it?
I think she could use a few more sessions with.
I'm pretty sure the drill abbot is going to have to help her with that, yes.
She get a kind of dreamy look on her face, and then just stares. Because
Medea.
something in her head started making sense, grabbing her knife and then just slices her arm up, because blood is nice.
Yeah.
It seems to calm her.
Alright, Medea, put the knife away and talk to us.
The blood is good.
No, blood is not good. Put the knife away.
Nothing wrong with a little carnage.
Maybe you should try that glowing
I
thing
think,
you do.
I think Medea, or I think Francesca, exactly. She's lying in bed and she starts to glow.
Well, everyone can hear Heine laugh hysterically in the background.
At least
You're
that
having
should.
fun, aren't you?
Yep.
At least that should cancel out the immediate effects of.
Yeah, I think so. I think that does have the effect that the voices aren't as loud and dominating inside your head.
Also makes her flinch quite a bit.
Yep.
Oh dear.
Medea,
Huh?
are you all there
Happened.
now?
She looks at her arm a little confused. What happened?
You suddenly started talking about carnage being good, and then you started cutting yourself. And you said something about they said everything was going to be fine. Who are they?
She quiets for a few moments. I'm not entirely sure, but your glowy thing seems to have made them quiet down a little.
This is serious. This is really serious.
Yes.
I'm still interested in hearing some more about you. You know, where you came from, and your life until you joined up with us. However it happened, how you became part of all this. I'm genuinely interested in hearing those things, because we are going to be out there and in danger together, and knowing the person next to you is valuable, because you might have a better idea of what they're going to do and how they're going to react. So it's not just all being incredibly social and nice. There's a good reason for it, but you are very clearly seriously affected by what happened down in that hole. And I would very, very, very strongly urge that you head back to the chapel when we're done here, because you need the help. If you are addressed by unseen creatures that flee when I channel my abilities, that is very, very, very serious.
I agree. I should know, being who I am.
Yes, but you are at least conditioned.
Exactly.
Medea isn't.
No, you're not even a psyker, as far as we're aware, anyway.
As far as we're aware, but it's a very serious situation, and we have just recently witnessed a bishop in the Cathedral of the Winged Martyr, high-ranking member of the ecclesiarchy, stand in front of his altar and carve his own ribs out with a knife, bleeding to death in front of us. Well, he would have if we hadn't killed him. And now Medea is cutting herself and talking about carnage being good. I am not so blind as to think there isn't a connection.
Medea lifts her hand slowly.
Mhm.
The cutting thing isn't new.
No, it might not be. But the voices, I assume, are.
Yeah.
Yeah. They will play on weaknesses you already have. The human.
She looks offended.
The human body is sacred. Harming it deliberately, harming yourself deliberately, is an offense to the God Emperor.
Then what about all the self-flagellation?
That is sanctioned. Flagellation is sanctioned. That's a different thing. But harming yourself simply for the cause, or for the reason of harming yourself and for no higher purpose than that, is, strictly speaking, harming the Emperor's property. We all belong to him, literally.
Huh.
I'm not going to call the Adeptus Arbites on you or anything of the sort. What I am is deeply worried and concerned for your safety, Medea. That's what is at play here, is a genuine concern for your safety. So, again, I would like to hear more about where you came from and your background and your personal history and so on, because, well, quite frankly, I would like to get to know you better, but I don't think right now is the right time.
All right.
Because I do think that you are in no state, or no fit state, to do much of anything except focus on getting those voices to quiet and calm down and not bother you anymore. And eventually, when I'm not channeling the Emperor's power anymore, you do need to go back to the chapel, all right?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. But of course, Francesca can keep this going for a while. So, out of character speaking, so she can sit there and glow for a while, and at least while she does that, give Medea some peace.
Yeah, sure.
Basically,
That makes sense.
to let her have some peace and quiet in her head for a while. And she, after a moment there, she, rubs her eyes and says, well, I guess that means I'm next.
Seems like it.
Well, right. The thing is, she says, I'm not even from this segmentum originally. I mean, obviously, the thing for me to say is that I come from the convent on Ophelia 4, and basically have I could give you the basics of what it means to be a member of the Adeptus Sororitas, but that's I think that's too impersonal. You wouldn't learn much from that beyond what you could read in the library. I was born on Talarn, which, in case you don't know of it, she says, and at least shoots a glance towards Medea, is a planet made up almost exclusively of desert.
Which the poor girl probably also doesn't know what is.
There are even desert areas. Some hive cities are large enough that there are actual, desert areas in the lower hive. Those are usually toxic deserts, but they're deserts nonetheless.
Yes.
She says the thing is, it is extremely hot. It is extremely unforgiving, and at least to those of us who are from there, it's extremely beautiful. My father, Ishmael Kanasani, was he was a member of the Imperial Guard. He was an officer in the Imperial Guard. He was in command of a unit of Lehman Russ tanks. And my mother was, she wasn't in the actual Imperial Guard, but she was attached to the Imperial Guard as a member of the Departmental Monitorum, so quartermasters, basically, for several Talarn regiments. And as chance would have it, they ended up serving close to each other. I mean, the chances of that are remote, but it happened. It's not supposed to happen, but it did.
So they were involved before they served close to each
other? Yes, they were. I was placed in the care of my family, extended family, when I was little, because of this. And my parents were involved obviously in several campaigns, several wars, on behalf of obviously on behalf of the Empire. It was they ended up on a planet called Passes 3. It's far away and it's a small place, but it was overrun by orcs. And the Imperial Guard, the Hammer of the Emperor, was told to cleanse Passes, or not Passes 3, that was what I said. I mean, out of character, that was a mistake. It's Passes 8. I can see the V there. She says, and they were supposed to cleanse Passes 8, and they were having a lot of success. The orcs are innumerable, but not quite so innumerable as the Imperial Guard. And furthermore, the Imperial fleet in orbit defeated the foul Xenos fairly easily and could assist with planetary bombardments. So things were actually going rather well. Until apparently a group of these foul things, these horrific beasts, flanked the regiment that my father was a part of, due to a serious command blunder on behalf of the regiment's colonel, and my father, who was at the moment was held in reserve, had to take his 3 tanks in against odds of 10 to 1. to defend the munitions dump. If that had fallen into the hands of the Xenos, they could have continued the campaign for a lot longer than they did. And he took his tanks in, and he knew, apparently, he must have known that that he would not survive, and he did it anyway. The last words that were recorded, him saying, is that it's a privilege to die for the Emperor. And moments after that, his tank, as the last of the three, exploded. But in the meantime, while he had kept the orcs busy, my mother had made it across the battlefield and had placed explosive charges in the munitions bunkers, and she died when they exploded and took the entire ridge with it, including the Xenos. And for that act of bravery, they were both elevated to the status of minor sainthood on Passes 8. And because of this, exactly, and because of that, it was judged that I would be candidate for the Schola Progenium, obviously the school for the imperial schools for specially privileged or specially skilled children. And in my case, I was sent there because it was believed that I had, with parents like that, I might have something to live up to. And people go from the Schola Progenium to all manner of different parts of the imperial system. Some become members of the ecclesiarchy, others enter the administratum. It's the finest education you can get in the empires or in the Imperium. So it's I mean, I was very, very fortunate, but I showed an aptitude for religious teachings and for weapons use, and was chosen to join the Adeptus Sororitas. I have, before I joined with you, I had taken part in 2 campaigns. And I have seen what war will do to an imperial planet. I have seen what heresy can lead to on the last planet I was on before coming here. And I can tell you that I will stop at absolutely nothing to prevent it from happening here. There is no act short of heresy on my own part that I will not undertake in order to prevent that from happening on Scintilla. Because if it happens here, every single human being on this planet will die. Every last one. So yeah, that's my story, such as it is.
2 generations of duty to the Emperor.
Indeed. Well, it obviously stops with me, but yes.
There are worse fates, or there are worse ends to a family line.
I would say it is the greatest of honors that has been bestowed upon me. I am incredibly privileged and incredibly honored to have been so picked for this kind of duty. It is in every respect the best life I could hope for.
Well, that's certainly a much more interesting story than mine.
Well,
One
I'd
can
say-
see where you get your conviction and courage from.
thank you. But I would probably say that, well, my personal story, of course, is one of a lot of going to school and a couple of wars, but those are far more recent. I simply brought up the story of my father and mother because it explains how I ended up in such an esteemed facility as one of the Schola Progenium.
Of course, it's relevant.
Exactly.
Yes.
It is humbling to have something like that to live up to, and I was constantly reminded of it while I was still at school. I was constantly reminded that I had to live up to my parents' example. I consider it an easy duty to try to do. Not that it is easy to live up to it, but it is easy to motivate myself to try.
Yes. Indeed.
In any case, that is what there is to tell, I guess.
Okay, so is this a good point to return to the present?
I think so.
Yes. So let's do that then. The flashback ends, and we are now back in the present with Tim having acquired some serious firepower. Sister Francesca doing research in the library, and Medea being totally and utterly confused about the whole experience in the chapel, alongside the drill abbot and
Just generally having a very bad day, I imagine.
yes. So the question
Her day
then
is fine, just confusing.
Yeah. I wonder what Accolon's been doing.
Yeah, what has Accolon been doing? That's a good question.
Well, it depends on whether or not he's able to pick up that flamer he's ordered.
Oh, he is. He would be.
Mhm.
3 days is enough for a flamer to come from Gunmetal City.
Yes, I wonder if he's I'm not sure whether or not Accolon would be the kind of person to get that kind of pyromaniacal glint in his eye upon receiving it, or if he just looks at it like another weapon. This book, because we know Francesco's already the pyromaniac of the group, so
Yes.
Just wait until you fire it the first time and you feel the rush.
yeah.
Tim would probably consider it impractical for him.
Yes.
Well,
I think it would be very impractical for him because it's not a precision weapon.
It's not even a long-range
Exactly.
weapon either.
Nope, it's not. It's really not. But it is very useful for someone. Because first and foremost, Accolon has reasonable armor, and he, as long as he follows behind the walking tank with the heavy flamer, it allows him to sort of do the mopping up thing, doesn't it?
Yes. Absolutely. What?
So yeah.
So that he could do that, and then he might. I could certainly see him trying to join Francesca in the library afterwards if there's time, because you know, 2 learned heads are better than 1.
Absolutely.
Certainly. Okay, so that's the thing. You spend some time in the training area, trying out your new toy, and then you go to the library. Okay.
Then does our intrepid inquisitorial substitute for the foreseeable future come and try to spoil my training with words and tests of gas attacks or something?
No, but something else does actually happen while you're there.
Dear God.
You hear Trina's. So I suppose she does actually. Okay. You hear her voice over the Vox system, saying all inquisitorial personnel, please vacate the training areas.
Okay.
And at this point, you've had some time to practice, so it
He does.
doesn't.
Well, he'll quickly pack up his stuff and get the hell out of there. He doesn't want to tread on Trina's toes.
No, as it happens, it's not her toes he'd be treading on, but that's another matter entirely. So he goes to seek out Sister Francesca in the library, or at least he also goes to the library.
Yes.
And what is his purpose there?
Either to continue to try and succeed where he failed with his research the first time around. The last couple of sessions he did trying to do some research, which I can't for the life of me remember what it actually was, but he failed, I remember, because the roles were dire.
Yes.
Or he could see that Francesca's there looking something up and try to help her find more details about what she's searching for.
Sure. Either one works for me. The thing is, though, that Sister Francesca has really found all that she's able to find.
She's more than happy to share it with him and let him see what it is she's come up with, though.
Yep.
Okay.
And that is, well, basically she pushes a couple of data slates across the table to him, and the first one are the names of 3 of the miscreants that we killed down below in the Middle Hive, including one from a family called Gul'jan, and she says that we have come across this name once before in all of this.
Yes, of course.
And we don't know if this is the same person. We just know that he has the family DNA strands in his in his body. We don't know if it's the same man, but we let us assume, because it is always better to assume the worst in a situation like this, so that you don't get taken by surprise. Let us just assume for a moment that it is not the same person. In which case, at least 2 people in this family at this time are actively involved in heresy. There is furthermore, and she pushes the other data slate over, Ansel Mons explained to me that he has actually previously investigated, or what's it called? Not investigated. What's it called? Interrogated a mutant from that family, and according to this, his mutation was something as foul as tentacles growing from his back. So quite a serious mutation. Obviously, well, all mutation is serious, but I'm sure you know what I mean. This is this is, if Ansel Mons has done this, that means that it's not that long ago. Obviously, it's in it's in living memory at least. Ansel Mons might be, or Medica Mons might be older than he looks. For all we know, he has been using what's it called, Heine? That
Juvenat or Rejuvenat, maybe.
Rejuvenation, yeah, exactly. He's been using rejuvenation. We don't know if he has done that, but in any case, it is nonetheless within living memory, which means that this particular family has had a lot of problems with heresy fairly recently. And last but not least, she says, and flicks over to another piece of information on this most recent data slate she pushed across. I think you might be interested in knowing that the person who originally reported these 10 floating strange objects that we have seemed to have had so much to do with, and one of which now happens to be lodged in the forehead of our esteemed Inquisitor. The person who originally reported the existence of these things is a progenitor of the Gul'jan line. I don't believe in circumstance.
No.
There is no chance that this is not connected. So now the question, my friend, is how, in the Emperor's name, do we get access to an upper hive noble family in order to sit them all down and investigate them thoroughly for the crime of heresy?
Maybe throw some kind of extravagant social to-do.
To be perfectly honest with you, personally, I believe that this is something which we are simply not empowered to do. This is too delicate an affair for mere acolytes to handle. What I think we have to do is hand over all our findings to Trina, and this is something for someone carrying an actual inquisitorial seal, not someone who's an acolyte. If this blows up in our faces, it could seriously damage the Inquisition's standing on Scintilla, and we do not need that to happen.
No.
Would you concur?
I most certainly would, with the proviso that maybe it's just me being, being a psycho and all, but I have a suspicion that even if we do pass this on to someone with more authority and a greater understanding of the delicacies needed to interact with the nobility, I do not think that this will be the last involvement we have with this case.
No, I don't think so either, but I think the actual involvement with a noble house, I cannot imagine that the Inquisition would entrust something that potentially dangerous to, and I'm not talking physically dangerous, I'm talking politically dangerous, to, well, to be perfectly honest with you, to an underhive individual, what was it he called it? An eliminator of problems from yes.
I was like, what did I call him? A disagreeable persons disposal unit.
Yes, exactly. A psyker, however sanctioned, and a sister of battle without canoness rank or above. I think the and I don't even think a canoness would get away with something like that without serious repercussions. I think you'd have to have something like this would probably require the intervention of an abbess, and I'm just not there at all. So I'm thinking personally that what we might want to do is, as I said, hand over these things to Trina and let her and her compatriots deal with with that part of it, while we go back down to the middle hive, because we are not done seeking out I mean, I don't think we should be so reckless as to think that something this potentially far-reaching has only found fertile soil in one cell. There is undoubtedly more to be done in the middle hive, and that is something we are qualified to do.
Yes, of course, with our raid on Cantina they will now be even more aware of us and expecting our intervention, so we'll have to...
definitely. I'm kind of expecting that most of them will have gone to ground, and those who haven't will have stocked up on heavy weapons.
Well, it's a good thing that I decided to do the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I I finally acquired a flamer of my own. We can share the love.
Yes, the cleansing flames of Promethium are highly effective at ridding the world and the galaxy and the Imperium in general of the foul taints of heresy.
Yep, bugs from great to small.
Yes,
In fact,
indeed.
let me tell you, I haven't told anyone this story.
Let's hear it.
Back in the chapels on Piety of Seth, well, I've mentioned that my ward was a man of pragmatism and sort of reserved concern for dealing with the various issues of the chapel. But this one time I remember we found a nest of spiders, not anything tainted or anything, just spiders.
Yes.
Located in one of the sort of side rooms. And me and Father Voltor, we've briefly discussed how to deal with the situation. But then he decided to go off, and I'm not quite sure what it did, but he poured some liquid all over the nest and threw a match on it and just watched these tiny creatures in their nest pop and burn. I've never seen him do anything quite that extravagant before.
Well,
I suppose
the same happens when you throw Promethium on heretics. They pop and burn.
The relish with which you say that, sister, is both heartening and somewhat disturbing.
Well, what can I say? Heretics deserve everything that is coming to them.
Of course.
But I think, just between the two of us, that we might want to get the others, and then, as I said, hand over our findings to Trina, and then let her know that we intend to go back down to the Middle Hive, because, let's face it, there are millions living there. And the last thing we need is for this kind of heresy to still fester. And we do have some leads to go by in these phrases that we've been hearing repeated over and over. We need to find more examples of them. And while it is undoubtedly going to be a problem for me to walk into a crowd and start demanding that they tell me this, because, tell me where to find people involved in these things, because they're going to run away. It is possible for both Medea and Tim. We've seen that before. Tim had a lot of luck with it, after all.
Yes.
And there's no reason to think that Medea couldn't as well. She was simply unfortunate last time around.
It will take some time yet, I think, before she is deemed fit to resume her part in the investigation. But I have,
we shall see.
Faith. She is a survivor, I think.
Well, yeah, and the drill abbot is an effective man.
Yes. I was going to say, I haven't seen Trina. I was training with the Flamer before I came here, before Trina ordered all personnel to clear the facilities. I suspect that someone important was required to prepare for something in there.
That is entirely possible.
Is there anything else?
You have had a chance to at least fire it, I take it.
Yes, and the targets were suitably singed.
Excellent. Well, in that case, let's go find the others.
Yes.
Medea, I have a question for you. Is Medea wandering around the Inquisitor's quarters, or is she staying in her room?
She is wandering around.
Okay. So, at some point when Medea walks by the chapel, she notices that. So, as for as long as you've been been a part of this of the Inquisitor's retinue, the chapel has rarely been. There's rarely been anyone in there except for the drill abbot and you when you needed it, and the others. But as you walk past it, it is absolutely packed with black-robed figures, deep in prayer in there. And the drill abbot has apparently been, at least for the time being, evicted from his own chapel. Inside the chapel stands...
I can't imagine he's happy about that.
No, he isn't. But Medea also spots... So, most of these robed figures are about your size, regular human size. They are kneeling, and like I said, deep in prayer. There is one man, though. He's facing everyone else in the chapel. He is a hulk of a man. You've never seen a giant. He is a giant. He's massive, easily 8 feet tall. He's also dressed in a black robe, and you see his face is not covered by a hood or anything. But you see, it has been caved in more than once. He bears multiple scars and war injuries, and yet he stands there leading these religious proceedings. And the drill abbot just stands outside this massive door leading into the chapel, and he looks at you when you walk past him, and there is this. He's resigned to the fact that he won't be able to enter it for the foreseeable future. He's not going to argue the case, but he does seem a bit dejected, a bit. They
My
took my chapel.
Oh, poor man. Poor baby.
I was kicked out of my own living room.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I mean, bad enough that he was evicted by, well, assuming that we are correct in our guesses as to who this giant fellow is. Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
that would just be so flipping cool. I don't give a damn.
And anyone within these inquisitorial chambers, with the exception of possibly Sister Francesca and Accolon, because I imagine you've closed the door into the library. If you haven't, that's totally up to you. Anyway, you can hear the sound of bolter shells.
Oh,
Except
yes.
It's
much
probably a
louder.
lot. Yeah, I was about to say probably sounds a whole lot louder than when she fired hers, and
Yes.
hers already sound louder than what you would call quote unquote civilian bolters.
Yes. So
It is so typical that our two characters are the ones who miss out on actually seeing and meeting goddamn space marines.
So yeah, Medea and Tim. I see Tim is be right back, but they've both heard when Sister Francesca fires her bolters, and this is much louder and there's a much bigger oomph to it. To these bolter shots. As I understand it, though, Sister Francesca and Accolon, you intend to go find the others. Is that correct?
I have to say,
Yes.
if we can look in there and see that there is what must necessarily be one of the Emperor's finest, leading the faithful, well, my only guess is that is a chaplain. Now, the point being, of course, that the Adeptus Astartes, with a few chapters exception, don't actually see him as divine. They see him as dad.
Granddad, at least.
Well, granddad, yes. Dad would be the relevant Primarch, but he is granddaddy into the Adeptus Astartes. But that, I mean, obviously there are a couple of exceptions where they say, yeah, okay, he's granddad, but granddad became a god.
Yep.
The god. So that might be the case here. I don't know. My point is, there is no way in high heaven or low hell that Francesca is walking past a place where a space marine is preaching, because that would be the height of disrespect.
Yes.
So that would be a matter of doing a 90-degree turn and heading into the chapel.
Well, before we get that far,
Yeah.
as I understand it, Medea actually wanted to communicate with the Drill Abbot, and you absolutely can, AJ. I apologize if I skipped past that. So, as Medea sees this, she looks into the chapel, and then she sees the Drill Abbot standing there, shoulders slumped. Well, he not, and then again, he is standing in the presence of, as the others guessed correctly, a space marine. So he is also full of awe, and he's also done his share of kneeling and paying proper respect to this giant of a man. But at this point, he is still he would like his chapel back.
They took it away.
So, is there anything Medea wants to say to the Drill Abbot as she sees this? I don't imagine she has the same kind of respect for Space Marines, seeing as she probably doesn't know what they are.
Oh, and I'm sending a link here if you want to see some kind of comparison.
Sure.
Well,
Yes.
he sees the guy in the hallway first, because he's in the hallway, he doesn't fit in the hallway.
Nope.
He's usually in there yelling at her, which is also kind of weird, because the voices make sense, but he says they don't, which is also kind of weird.
Yes. All
And
kinds
telling
of
her they are bad, but they don't sound bad because they kind of understand and still not. So she is still kind of confused, and then she looks into the room, then looks back at him. Complete confusion in her face, just gets more confused. Who's that?
That, my dear Medea, is, and his voice is shaking as he says it. That, my dear, is one of the Emperor's angels. It is a man of the Adeptus Astartes.
Oh. Doesn't really look like the angels I thought they'd look like.
Oh, he's beautiful, isn't he?
Her face changes to that complete nope, and she looks at
Oh, that is so brilliant.
And
Oh, I love that. I have to. That was just
he
fantastic.
So for the first time since she's talked to him, he actually turns around to look at Medea, and he says, "So you don't know about Space Marines, do you?"
Oh,
Sorry, I couldn't resist anymore.
It is almost too tempting, isn't it?
Does Medea respond to his question?
She opens her mouth, then lifts her hand, then shakes her head and lowers her hand.
The best way to describe Space Marines to you, Medea, is that, like I said, they are the guardian angels. No, he doesn't say that. The Emperor's angels. They are the pinnacle of what we can be as humans. They They are his sons, and they do his bidding on the worst possible battlefields throughout the galaxy and beyond. Certainly in the case of the Space Marines who have blessed us with their presence. They are members of the Death Watch. And he looks at Medea, kind of expecting that to register and result in some kind of shock or awe or whatever. But I'm assuming that isn't the case
Right.
with Medea.
Let's Yeah, she totally gets it.
Cool. So she nods and looks like she gets what he's saying, and he approves of that. He smiles at this and says, "Yes, we truly are blessed, Medea. Emperor be praised." Smile and wave, yeah.
Smile and wave, boys. Just smile and wave.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
She
he
looks back in at the man with what she perceives as admiration. It could be hungry, but it could also be admiration. She's at least trying, and the deceive went fairly well.
yeah. He he nods toward the Space Marine standing in the room, and he says, "This particular man is what is known as a chaplain, which to Space Marines is this. He fills the same role for them as I do here, and that is where I will stop comparing myself to a Space Marine ever again." But that is his role. He is a priest for the Space Marines.
Ah.
And the many other folks you see in there are the retinue that travel with these Space Marines.
He's certainly tall.
Yes, he is. They all are. They are giants among men. Rasmus?
In more ways than one.
Space Marine!
Rasmus! Hey!
So,
It's so hard not to say it every time you say Space Marine.
so let this be the time where Sister Francesca and Akalon also happen to. Well, so as soon as you've left the library, really, you also hear those bolter rounds somewhere in the distance.
Is there any chance whatsoever that Francesca would actually recognize that sound? I mean, she may not have served next to Space Marines, but there is a long history of cooperation between the Adepta and the Adeptus Astartes.
Well, she would.
I mean, at least she would know that it's a bolter. She might actually confuse it for a heavy bolter.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe a heavy bolter, but there's something to. I will say there's something to it though that isn't quite a heavy bolter.
Yeah, not quite fast enough. Not staccato enough.
Yes.
Akalon will be confused if I say bolters. And a lot louder than your own.
Either that's a heavy bolter that's firing too slow. It might be a storm bolter. Can't be. Can't be. No.
What's on your mind?
What would they be doing here? I mean, no. And she just starts, hurrying through the hallways.
And
Okay.
Akalon follows you.
And I think we'll take our last break there, and we'll pick up when we get back.
Yes, I shall be right back.